Hello, good evening. This is getting to be such a habit with this vlog. I do about 3 takes and they don't come out right, and then I get to the stage where I just go, right, the next one I'm just going to do it, it's fine, and then that's the one that usually works out fine. So I'm sitting in the Avenues, which is the largest mall in Kuwait. It's actually one of the largest malls in the Middle East, if not the largest mall in the Middle East. I've got to do a bit of fact checking on that, but I believe there's one in Iran that's bigger. It's definitely bigger than the malls in Dubai though, which I don't think Dubai is too happy about and doesn't really shout about. Dubai is the one that's best known for the shopping, and actually the shopping in Kuwait is unbelievable. So you can oversee in the background here, there's like a lovely area. This is in the middle of the malls. This is in between like the grand avenues, and there's lots of avenues that go down it. And there's a cheesecake factory where I might be heading after this. So I found a bit of an edge to kind of overlook, so to give you a bit of a nice view. I hope the sound's okay. And it's quite ironic because the thing that I'm going to be talking to you today is about finance. And we said that we were going to talk this week about some challenges that you might face when you first set up your business. Now, I don't like dwelling on things that could go wrong, and I don't like telling you about all the things that you might come up against, because, see, to be honest, if you knew everything that was going to happen and you were aware of everything that was going to stand in your way, you wouldn't do it. I don't know, honestly, if I would do it again if somebody had said to me at the time, this is everything that you're going to go through. And that's financially, physically, emotionally, mentally, you know, it's an absolute roller coaster, and it's one that you sometimes need to hang on for dear life. If somebody said that to you at the beginning, it would scare you. You know, you don't want to hear that. So I don't like focusing on the negative. So I'm obviously going to turn all of these around into a positive and tell you how to get by with less, and also how to deal with these things as they come up. So finance, this is the biggie. I've got quite a couple of interesting stories around finance. I've never been great with money. I've always been terrible with money, in fact. And I think the look on my family's face when I told them that I was setting up a business, particularly my brother and my dad, I think that was just written across their face, like, oh my God, how can you manage the finances of an organisation? You can't manage your own. I very quickly learned that it's not about what you spend your money on, it's about what you don't spend your money on. There's so many things that you can get for free. There's so much advice that you can get for free. There's so many kind of wee tricks and little kind of leverages, I suppose, you can make that mean you don't have to shell out that much money to set up a business. So we've already spoke about, very briefly in another vlog, how to get your product to market and everything like that. I'm not going to touch on that again. I'm going to talk about the practicalities of day-to-day life. Okay. I set up my business and I was a letting agent. A letting agent travels to properties showing people flats. I couldn't afford a car, okay? So as a letting agent, I was taking on any property that I could get because I needed the business. First 2 properties that I took on were in Paisley, so I was getting the train to Paisley, and what I was doing was I was making out as if I was only in Paisley one day because of that's the way that my meetings were set up. And it made people think I was really busy. So people would say, can you make this day? And I'm like, I'm really, really sorry, I've got viewings and I made up a place. I've got viewings in Eaglesham that day. Could we do Tuesday? I'm actually in Paisley that day. The reason was I couldn't afford a bus fare on any other day of the week. I couldn't afford the train fare. Like, I had to limit myself to one day in Paisley, 1 day's worth of trains, 1 train ticket. That's the real reason. But I was telling people it was because I was so busy that I had these, you know, highfalutin meetings and all these posh areas. I blooming didn't. So that was the getting to the properties. Couldn't afford a car. Made do. And then actually what happened was, after a couple of months, the travelling just became too much. I was travelling to these far out areas. I was spending a fortune in trains. And I looked at it and I thought, right, I'm either going to have to get a car or I'm going to have to stop travelling to these areas. Sorry, they're moving furniture. Oh my God, like, of all the times, it's so loud. I'm going to try and keep going. So it was either a case of get a car, which I knew I couldn't afford, or find some way to pay the travel to go to these areas. And then I looked at what I was doing and I thought, well, see, instead of that, how about if I only deal with properties in G1? Now, G1 is the central area in Glasgow, so that's Glasgow city centre. So how about if I only deal with Glasgow city centre properties? And I started to do that as of about June 2014, which was right in the run up to the Commonwealth Games. Now, the properties in the outskirts that I already had, I would still deal with as a favour to the landlord, but taking on new properties, I would only deal with G1. What actually happened over the next 3 months is we gained a reputation as being a luxury letting agent. Now, there was nothing luxury about it. I couldn't afford a car, couldn't afford petrol, and I couldn't afford train fares out to Paisley every day, which for anybody who doesn't know where Glasgow and Paisley is, was £4.20. Out of that came our brand being identified as a luxury letting agent for the city centre. Okay, so that's one example. Other one's networking. When you go to networking events, if it's a paid networking event, ask if you can come along for free. Don't be embarrassed. You don't have to explain your financial situation in order to get something for free. You can just ask, listen, can I come along for free? I've never been before. I'm not sure whether it's for me. A few people have recommended it to me, and obviously I'd be happy to recommend you to other people, but is there any chance I could come along and not pay this time? If they say no, they say no. You're no worse off. I'm pretty sure they're going to say yes. Even people like the Chamber of Commerce will let you along to meetings for free, and they're seriously big organisations, so definitely chance your arm. Other things like marketing and advertising, don't be that guy with the fancy business cards and zero business, you know. Get business cards that are relevant to where you are. I actually have in my purse every single business card I've ever had. My first business card, it was a Vistaprint special, so it was like a paint splash like this, and it had my name, my details, and it was very, very basic because I couldn't afford to fill in any more lines. Like, you pay extra if you want more details on it. And on the back you can pay something like £5, pay £5, and the back is clear, there's nothing on it. And if you don't pay the £5, it says on the back something to do with Vistaprint. I couldn't afford the £5, so I was just so for like, no, I was going to say 6 months, it wasn't 6 months, but 2 months, I had business cards which had Vistaprint on the back. That's how tight money was. And when I'm giving these cards over, people think that folk are going to look at that and go, oh, she's a start-up, what does she know? Do you know what actually happens? People looked at that and went, oh my God, she's just starting out, that's fantastic, how can we help? And I get such a better response. If you start out and pretend that you're at a further stage, so if you pretend you're better off than you are, and you pretend that you've got all this money and you're so well off, and look at my fancy business cards, do you know what's going to happen when you finally get to that stage? Nobody's going to acknowledge it and nobody's going to appreciate it, because they're just going to be thinking, I always thought he was loaded, I always thought the business was successful. Don't pretend to be something you're not. So that's networking for free, business cards for cheap, don't get a car, I suppose. But also what you need to do before you're setting up in business is have a real look at your personal financial situation, work out what you can afford. All the best business books and all the best articles will tell you you need 3 months' salary in the bank. I really don't think you do. I also think that's quite unrealistic in today's day and age. If you had a job which would allow you to quickly save 3 months' salary in the bank, you're probably not wanting to leave it. So I would say work out how much you can afford to live on, half it, and then work out how you can afford to live on that. And if you can afford to live on it, you're going to be fine. Get used to eating super noodles. Get used to the only meal of your day being when you take a client out for dinner, because then you're not spending money on food, you're investing money in your business. Look at everything that you're spending money on as a business investment, instead of actually wasting money on spending something like a consumable like food. I'm going to leave it there because it's starting to get a wee bit noisy. I hope that's been really helpful for you. I will see you tomorrow night. Tomorrow is actually my 34th birthday, so I'm going to do something special for the vlog. So I'll leave you tonight and I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers, bye.